to talk about, and we don't want to go like crazy lengthy. We want to respect your time and everyone's schedules that are here. So let's just jump in. If you're new here and you haven't been, my name is Sarah Jones. We've also got Sarah Loveland and Brooke Ann Sherrill. We've got some other ladies that are going to speak tonight, so they can just briefly say their name when they hop on. This is a super loving super loving area. And when we jump underground, which means we're going to turn the recording off, so you guys may have all seen the notification that we just started recording. This first part's going to be recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube for you to access in the future. But then when we turn the recording off and we go underground, I would highly encourage you to stay, because that's when things get good, and that's when we're going to start talking details of the why and the what and how it works, and you guys are going to be able to share some of your testimonies, and that's when you're going to want to have your notes really rolling and pay attention to what people are saying. So stick around. If you do need to go, this is super casual, like I said, so come and go. If you need to hop off and come back in 30 minutes, we're still going to be here. So make yourself at home, like I said, and welcome to the Oily Underground. Let's talk about ADHD and anxiety. Whew, it's a big one, you guys. There's like a whole bunch of you on here. This is pretty awesome. This is a topic that comes to me a lot because it's really common. So let's just go in, okay? Really quickly, we don't need to talk about what it is so much, because most of the people on here, if you are here, you already know what it is, you have it, someone in your life has it, and you understand it. But really quickly, I thought this was interesting. I'm just going to throw some stuff out there, and you guys can kind of connect some dots if you want. And if the dots don't connect and later on you want to reach out to me, I'll help connect them for you. But ADD is what we used to know as attention deficit disorder. And in 1987, what do you need? You're making the door squeaky. 1 second. In 1987, the medical world combined all the different types of behavioral disorders. So there's like a whole bunch of them. And a lot of them were getting put into the ADD category, and that's not really where they belonged. And some things were getting overlooked and mistreated and misdiagnosed, and people weren't getting what they needed. And so in 1987, they put them all together in a blanket term called ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So what does that look like? Because we know blanket terms can be helpful, but they also can be dangerous because things get lost in the wash. So what does it look like? ADHD can look like unable to sit still, unable to concentrate, hard to finish tasks, excessive movement, talking excessively, impulsive, interruptions, where you interrupt a lot because your brain's like, bah, 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 and you got to get it out while you can, because in 5 seconds, it's not going to be there anymore. Can't wait your turn, disorganized, poor time management, mood swings, stress, trouble coping with stress, poor planning, and anxious. So who knew? Like, we're here to talk about ADHD and anxiety is a symptom of ADHD. So they go perfectly hand in hand together. If you have one, you tend to have at least a little bit of the other one. So yeah, there's that. Let's keep moving. Also, feel free to interrupt me. My kids already interrupted me, so that's a great theme. So if you have a question, and I'm moving fast because I want to get us underground so you guys can really start talking to each other, then just pop on and holler at me and say, hey, I have a question. So anyways, anxiety is, and mind you guys, we're not just talking about children. We're totally talking about adults also. And so as we're going through this and things are triggering in your brain, think about yourself also, and think about the adults in your life, because this is 100% affecting adults as much as it is children. I think a lot of times the children get the highlight because it'd be really convenient if children would act compliantly all the time. And so when they don't, it's like red lights, right? But in adults, we see it as other things, or it gets masked very easily. And so we don't think of it as being something that needs a term or a diagnosis so that we can do something to treat or help it. Okay, I found it so interesting that when you look up ADHD and anxiousness or anxiety as a symptom, but we don't always talk about the two hand in hand. So anxiety is really just a generalized disorder with a super wide spectrum. So that's why this topic is so like needs a space like this, because both of these things are so wide and so spread out that it's reaching out and touching people in so many different ways. But our society has a very distinct idea of and definite like stigma of what these things look like. And so anxiety, there's this wide, range. It can be social anxiety, it can be phobias, it can be panic, OCD, PTSD. There is coffee and caffeine induced anxiety. There's adult onset anxiety. There is alcohol induced anxiety, medicated induced anxiety. You can be on medication and coming off it, and that can induce anxiety. Environmental anxiety, and then there's trauma rooted anxiety. And I'm not even covering them all. So if you know of another one, throw it in the chat. Bree says, I feel attacked right now, right? Yeah, for sure. For sure. And when I started researching this stuff, I definitely like turned the mirror on myself and found where I fall on the spectrum, because I truly believe like a lot of us do. It's hard, you're hard pressed not to find yourself somewhere there. Okay, so what can anxiety look like? I would love it if any of you want to be brave already. I know sometimes it takes a minute for us to like settle in before people want to start sharing. But if any of you want to be brave and jump in the chat and tell me what anxiety looks like in your life, I would love to see that, because I think when we start to share that, it makes the normalcy of this and this just more real, and the stigma starts to disappear. And then we can really start to open up and talk about what you can do to make just general life better. And that's what we're here for. Wellness, like whole body wellness. So, oh yeah, this is good. Thank you. Yeah, throw it in the chat for me. I do believe I have like an adult onset anxiety. And so I guess I'll save that for the underground, just so we can get serious with it, and I don't have to be careful about what I say. So yeah, y'all throw that in the chat. What can anxiety look like? It can look like you're being worried or scared, overcautious. Your heart rate is way higher than it should be for a more consistent or a longer time. Your chest can be tight, that like classic kind of anxiety attack that we all think about. And you can be struggling or just flat out can't do normal tasks that you would normally do. And they're triggering to you. So yeah, you guys, I love it. Keep no sleep. Yep, we're about to talk about that. Anger. Yes, I am familiar. Okay, so ADHD and anxiety throws the body into what we call like a prolonged fight or flight mode. I'm going to bet most of the people on here, there's what, 50 of us now, know what fight or flight is. But in case you're not sure, fight or flight is the mode that your body goes into when you need to be like in survival mode. So like if a bear is chasing you, then you really want your fight or flight to come into action. It's very helpful when you need to stay alive. But when your fight or flight is activated, then it shuts down signals in the body that regulate other things. So when your body's like, oh, okay, hold up, like there's a bear chasing me, I got to pay attention, like activate fight or flight, then your hormones for sleep don't secrete the way that they should. I mean, nobody needs to go to sleep if their life is on the line, right? This is why when you have anxiety and ADHD, you don't sleep well, because your body's like, no, we don't have time for that. Like, we're just trying to stay alive. And it feels like there's something threatening happening, like a bear chasing it, right? But really, you just live in the suburbs and you need to get a good night's rest, and there's nothing, attacking you. Your reproductive hormones. This is one of the reasons we've seen this like massive spike in infertility. That's a whole nother call, and we've done that call. But anyways, your reproductive hormones like shut down. Your digestion shuts down. Who else? Because that's a huge one for me. My anxiety is felt in my gut, in my stomach, and my digestion is like, we don't need to be doing anything. We'll just hang out here and do nothing. Your serotonin shuts off, and we know serotonin is your happy hormone. So that's where your moods are just completely jacked, because your body's like, there's no time to laugh. There's no time for comedy or anything even happy. Like, we're just trying to survive. So among other things, there's plenty of other things that are truly affected. And when our bodies are amazing and they're made to go into that fight or flight, they're made to have those other things shut off for short periods of time. For the chase of the bear through the woods, and then you survive and you climb the tree or whatever the story is, and you're like, oh, I made it, I'm good. And then the adrenaline dump happens and you can like come back to zero, and your poop comes out. That's definitely one. And you come back to zero and you can just like go back into normal function as a human being. But the problem is that we're staying in that fight or flight all the time, and we're never coming out. And then that results in problem after problem after problem, because the body cannot stay there. It will not continue to function, and we end up with these severe issues. And then we're like humans not functioning in society, and we can't figure out why, but that's why. So triggers to avoid for ADHD and anxiety. Okay, we're going to kind of couple the two together. They go hand in hand. Number one, you guys, red food dye. Like, who already knew that? Probably most of you. If you didn't, that's totally fine, because you're going to leave tonight knowing, because this one is huge. And this is one I can get on my soapbox about. Red food dye, or food dye in general, is absolutely horrible for the brain and the body. He told me today, "Are you going to talk about Gatorade tonight?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, I am." So yeah, if your kids are drinking Gatorade, like, that's not a healthy choice. And there are healthy choices. So red food dye, in 2010, the European Union actually required warning labels on all of their food with artificial dyes. And that warning label said something along the lines of, when you consume this, you may very well have adverse effects on your activity and your attention. It's kind of like the cancer label on cigarettes. Like, you can smoke this, but it's probably going to give you cancer. So anyways, we don't have that in the US. Like, that's a big step. And in many other countries, a lot of these ingredients have been pulled, but they have not been pulled in the US. So if you're joining us from another country and you have these things, awesome for you. We don't. And that's a shame. And that's the soapbox I could be on all night. So I'll try to like hold back some of my passion here on this one. But like in Europe, if you walk in McDonald's and you order a strawberry sundae, you're getting real strawberries. In America, if you walk into McDonald's and order a strawberry sundae, you're getting artificial flavoring, fake strawberries, and red food dye. And it's this huge concoction for ADHD and anxiety. And I'll tell you guys a little bit of why in just a second, like what happens when we consume that. So anxiety is, oops, sorry. Hold on, I got a kid on my knee. Okay, so red food dye, flavorings of all kinds, and you even have to be a little bit careful with the natural flavorings. I'm not trying to like go full blown freak out here, but even with the lack of regulation protecting us in our country, even when you turn it over and it says natural flavorings, it can often be things that are triggering. So you just kind of want to watch there. So flavorings, gluten can be a trigger or an activator. Sweeteners of all kinds. Especially artificial, anything artificial, you guys. These are chemicals that are created, and I'm going to talk to you about how they disrupt our dopamine receptors. But sweeteners, but sugar also. And at least the FDA came out and admitted that sugar was as addictive as heroin, and that because of that is the reason for that. Is because of the way that it connects with the neurotransmitters in your brain. So even your regular sugar should be completely like bring it down some. And if you are dealing with full-blown anxiety, or you have ADHD, or your child has ADHD, then you should be working towards trying to go completely sugar-free, at least for a period of getting the body into a healing mode. And so a lot of times we have to do that when we're healing our gut, when we're healing any kind of situation. We want to pull back anything that's going to trigger it so the body can get out of fighting itself and fighting its environment and fighting what's being put in it, and go into a mode of recovery and repair. So sweeteners, preservatives, heavy metals, glyphosate, we know that's a key ingredient in Roundup, And that is found in all kinds of food, you guys. So if you're over there like, well, we don't even spray weeds at our house, or we don't live near farmers or whatever, like glyphosate is everywhere. It's in your coffee, it's in your cereals. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Herbicides and pesticides. So like I said, all of these things disrupt dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. These neurotransmitters work in your nervous system, and they send messages between nerve cells, and they play a big role in how we feel pleasure in the brain. Okay, so follow me here. Dopamine receptors view all of these triggers, these chemicals that I just mentioned, among more. I'm sure I missed some. Throw them down in the chat if I missed anything. They see them as drugs. So when your child is, drinking red Gatorade or eating red dye or flavorings, whatever, and they struggle with ADHD, you can have this if you want. Then when they consume that, it is like the same messages going off in the brain with the dopamine dump as an opiate, methamphetamines, cocaine, heroin. And that's not like to be extreme. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, come on, like heroin's not comparable to Cheerios, but actually in this situation, it's just mechanical. I'm not being extreme at all. It's what the brain sees and how these neurotransmitters work. And that is how they view them. And so you have this, you have these receptors which affect your movement, your emotions, and the reward center of the brain. And they're seeing these triggers that I mentioned as the same way as they do a drug. And you have this big dopamine dump. And then that fires off that dopamine dump, those neurotransmitters do, and then that equals what we think of as crazy behavior. Now, if you see someone freebasing on the sidewalk and they're smoking crack cocaine and then they start acting crazy, everyone's like, well, that's expected. You're doing drugs. But when you're eating a snack and then the kid starts acting crazy, or you drink your conventional coffee and then you're like completely like cracked out, nobody can put the pieces together. It's the same thing. It might not be in the same dose. It might not look exactly the same, but it's the same process happening in the brain. All right. When that happens and you have those massive dopamine dumps, it's just like a drug addict. Your body can't regulate on its own. It can't do it by itself. Like normal things don't work the same way in your body that they do in someone else's. And so your body's always looking for that next thing that's going to give it the dopamine dump. It's kind of a twisted little situation. Okay, so where are the triggers hiding? I already saw some of you. I can't follow the chat as fast as it was going, but Jag's tired. Yeah, he's tired. So where are they hiding? I saw some of you dump these in the chat, so add more if you want. But fruit juices, candy, baked goods, cereal. I saw somebody throw down Cheerios. You guys, cereal's bad, bad, bad. If you're going to have cereal's not a breakfast. Sorry, I'm here for the truth bombs. It's not a breakfast for your kid, and you can scramble some eggs as fast as you can pour a bowl of cereal, okay? Condiments, especially barbecue, Jell-O, toothpaste, pickles, gum, medication. What else? Tell me what else I'm forgetting. What do you know that people are eating? Simple carbs. Yep. Anything in a package, the crackers, the breads and stuff, most of those are highly sprayed with glyphosate. Conventional coffee. You guys know I'm a coffee killer on these calls. Conventional coffee is, very, very highly sprayed with pesticides. And then we grind the bean up and then we put hot water on it and then we drink it. So it's like the heat and the grinding of those beans that have been sprayed is a massive release of those toxins. And then you throw on the fact that the way that conventional coffee is processed is a massive attack to your adrenals and the rest of your system. So anxiety runs on Dunkin'. Yep. Looking at you, Starbucks. I know. Sorry, Starbucks lovers. There are coffees out there that you can use. So I drink Kion. It's Kion. And there's a couple others that are pretty good. And you just need to watch and see how they're grown and how they're processed and how they're packaged. So they're very high in mycotoxins, which is basically mold and fungus. And you put that in with pesticides. It's just like a perfect storm that we're drinking every morning to put us in this like insane anxiety state. And then our brain is like, I'm starving and I'm not functioning properly. All right, so what can we do? Actually, you know what? Sarah Loveland, let's tag you in. She wants to talk about some endocrine stuff.
Yes, this is going to be really brief. You sort of touched on endocrine disruptors. For those of you who don't know what endocrine disruptors are, they're basically something that can mimic our own hormones that is absorbed and gets into our body and then completely messes up our hormone regulation and system because the body is making decisions based off of not hormones. Anyway, I just started reading this book. I will put it in the chat box. It's incredible. It's called Sicker, Fatter, Poorer. And it's the urgent threat of hormone disrupting chemicals to our health and future and what we can do about it. So not only is it incredibly scientific and based in research, really well written, but it's also very empowering. And while it scares you, it gives you like doable steps to kind of get out of the cycle of endocrine disruptors that we found ourselves in. But I wanted to share just a little piece of information that was in it because it was so good. If I can find it, please hold. Okay. So it talked about how the prevalence of autism spectrum disorders and ADHD have skyrocketed in the last 50 years. A lot of people will say that that's just because we're testing more. That clearly cannot be the only reason. In fact, boys are 13% of boys and over 5% of girls will have some form of ADHD in today's generations, which is like astronomical numbers. And so the question is then posed, like, what has changed so radically in the last 60 years that we're seeing this? Certainly cannot just be because we're testing it, because it's not even logical. And so they focus on 4 different endocrine disruptors because it takes a lot of money to research this type of stuff, and a lot of companies don't want to spend the money to do the research. They focus on 4. Think of all the other the endocrine disruptors out there that they haven't focused on, but that would be pesticides, flame retardants, plasticizer chemicals, and bisphenols. And the evidence suggests that endocrine disruptors, such as those 4, are directly linked to the increase in ADHD and autism. So there's a whole lot more I could go into, but that's super wordy. But just wanted to throw that out there because that's something that is beyond doable for every single person here to start working on. And that is to get all the toxins out of your home. Use clean products, cleaning products, personal care products, all of the above. That is an excellent step. You're using them every single day. Something that you can absolutely invest in if you use makeup, all of that. That is kind of like a behind the scenes because we're not really thinking about it in terms of ADHD and autism and all anxiety disorders, but I wanted to throw it out there, and I'll put the book information down in the chat. It's all you, Jonesy.
You caught me trying to type. But yes, that stuff is huge, you guys. And I know that it's mentioned, we mention it a lot, but I really can't even think of a topic that your endocrine disruptors aren't affecting and that your environment isn't important and what we're putting on and in the body, like Sarah said, huge. Okay, before we jump underground, like what are some things that we can do as far as like no supplements, no food? We already talked about food that should be taken out, chemicals that should be food that or chemicals that should be avoided. Sorry, you guys are messaging me. I'm like, my ADHD is kicking in. So anyways, what can we do that's emotional based? Because how much of this is affecting our emotion? I talked about the fact that anxiety can be trauma triggered. And so we talk a lot about healing trauma and going back and dealing with emotions so that we can find whole body wellness. And you got to do all of that. And so how many times have you met with someone? I know for me, it's a lot. Or have you looked into your own trauma and gone back to your childhood and the words that were spoken to you dictated what you believe to yourself? So John Acuff has a new book called Soundtrack, and some of us were able to listen to him talk in person. And he talked about how like your soundtrack is yours. You get to change it if you want. But if we go back and think about what was said to us, we can also change what we say to others. And Sarah Nicholson was awesome, sent me a message today with all of these like changes in the way that you say things. So like changing the soundtrack, or what I talk about a lot is like a limiting belief and changing it to an empowering belief. It's the same idea when we are dealing with ADHD and even anxiety. And so these are those silent diseases that you hear people talk about, where it's like you don't look sick and you're not even like, you don't even act sick. So many of us have learned to function like a high functioning anxiety, or we've learned to function with our ADHD, where people are just labeling you as like, oh, she's so scattered, or she's unorganized, or, you know, he's this or whatever. Okay, so let's change the way that we talk to our children and to ourselves. And so I loved some of the examples that Sarah sent me. And one of them was like, if somebody told you or a child that you're not smart enough for college, maybe they're talking to someone who has ADHD, and it's like, you're not smart enough for college because you don't appear to be able to be studious enough to go to college. The switch to that would be, why don't you start your own business? How many people have been entrepreneurs that have high anxiety and ADHD, and they're thriving because their environment is not going to be in a classroom for hours on end, but boy, can they rock entrepreneurship. Right. Yes, Brooke Ann. Yes. I love that. Or like, bad kids can't sit still. You're not good if you can't sit still. Only the good kids sit still and be quiet. I don't know how many like people have heard that as a child and taken it into their adulthood, and your internal soundtrack immediately was played is like, I'm not good. The flip on that is like, everyone learns differently, and maybe you need to learn while you're moving. I have a kid that's like that, and he doesn't even fall under ADHD or anxiety, but he does better if he's able to move around. Everyone's different, and so let's pay attention to the script and the soundtrack that we're telling ourselves, or that maybe was told to us, where when we didn't have control over it. And you can change that, and you can 100% change what's being fed to your children. Name 5 things you see, 5 things you hear, think, feel. Yes. Yep. Sorry, coming up here. Okay. You're lazy and you don't listen. So that's something that gets put on ADHD people a lot, because maybe you asked them to do something and they didn't do it, and it appears that they were lazy or they just didn't listen to you, but in reality they flipping forgot, or you told them too many things at one time, and when they went back to do it, they were just like, okay, hold on, wait, and they're trying to sort it out in their brain. All right, so you're lazy and you didn't listen can be easily flipped to like, next time we won't give you 5 things and we'll work with you. And some of you on here have talked to me about your kids, and you've told me like, this is how it works in your home. You have to be like, okay, go get dressed. Okay, brush your teeth. And when you're slowly working with your child who has this condition, then you're putting them in an environment where they can thrive. And then that's what you can work them through to adulthood to have them be successful. Where I feel like most adults who have struggled with this their whole life have had some sort of negative trauma attached to it, because they've been told that they're failing at something. All right, I'm gonna hop off the emotional thing. Before we go underground, Megan wants to share a little bit, and I know she wants it on the recording because it's going to be some really great stuff, herbs and things a little bit that has to do with her story. Butterfly brain, yes. All right, Megan, tagging you in, go for it.
Hi.
Hi.
I put together a little bit of research on herbs that complement some of the other things that we might be doing to support our brains. I got all of my information from verywellmind.com and pubmed.gov, so it's all from peer-reviewed studies. Okay. And I did want to give you like a little disclaimer, like if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, definitely do your own research to make sure that this is something that is safe. So just real quick, I'm going to go over 7 herbs that are really good for ADHD and anxiety. The first one is ginseng. Ginseng works by protecting the dopamine pathway. It does this by regulating the hypothalamic pituitary. There, I got muted for a second. There we go. Okay. That was a big word. But this also helps to decrease brain fog. It regulates the immune response and the hormonal changes in your body due to stress, and helps maintain homeostasis. So that's how it helps with, it just helps to regulate your body. Next is ginkgo. You've probably heard about this. It was like really big in the early 2000s for people, but it supports cognitive function. In 2015, it was studied and shown to be an effective complementary treatment to stimulants for the treatment of ADHD. So you could use it along with medication if you're on it. It was shown to be most effective with inattentive ADHD, which is different from the hyperactive ADHD. And if you look up Dr. Amen clinics, he's a psychiatrist who specializes in ADHD. He pretty much tells everybody to take ginkgo, whether you have it or not. It's just really good for your brain and your nervous system. Next is German chamomile. This has been shown to help produce more of your natural noradrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, and GABA neurotransmitters. So it can be helpful for depression and some forms of anxiety. So I would definitely look it up and see if it complements your anxiety if you have it. Next is ashwagandha. This one's an Ayurvedic herb, so it's widely used in India. It was studied and shown that it, decreased anxiety by 56.5%, whereas just therapy decreased anxiety by 30%. So I imagine that the two things combined would be really amazing, but it's categorized as an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant herbal supplement. It helps to fight cancerous tumors as well as neurodegenerative disease. So it also helps to fight Alzheimer's. Next is rhodiola. It's been classified as an adaptogen, and so it helps to make you less prone to physical and emotional stress. So it just suppresses stress in your body. And this helped to show significant improvements in generalized anxiety disorder. It reduced it. It stimulates serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. I got lost in my notes. And then last is the combination of valerian root and lemon balm together. There was a study done a few years ago that showed that children with ADHD symptoms showed a decrease of 75% in hyperactivity from 75% to 14%, from impulsiveness from 59% to 22%. And the parents reported that social behavior and sleep improved. So these are all things that should be safe to use. I would definitely look it up first, but they can be complementary along with your other things that you're doing with nutrition and other things.
And Megan, you've seen a huge success in combining like
Yes.
oils, yep, and herbs.
Yeah, and when we go in the underground, I'll share like all the things that I've been doing and how it's been working for me. But I was on medication and I've been able to work my way off of it for right now. I'm open to going back to it if I need it. But for right now, it's working great. And it's been about 6 weeks since I've had to be off of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to run through a list really quickly before we go underground. So this is in the recording. That way, if anybody catches the recording, they'll have the list and they can always get with somebody on the whys later. So
Hey, 2 seconds.
if you are, yep, go.
Can you hear me?
Done. Yes.
Okay, sorry, I have my headphones in. I wanted to quick go back and touch on like the trauma-induced anxiety, because I think a lot of people probably struggle with that, especially because trauma can be so many varying things. I don't have tons to say about it, but because we were kind of talking about emotions, I love that you mentioned, I can't remember who it was, H, I think, I don't know who that is, but they said the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's really awesome. I've seen it also listed as the 3, 3, 3s. So 3 things you can see, 3 things you can touch, 3 things, and then move 3 different body parts. So kind of incorporating in like that's a grounding practice to like give yourself a focal point and a central point to focus on. And then the other thing that I really wanted to just quick throw into is to remember that emotions are not truth. So obviously when you have extreme trauma, it can seem as if those are the truth, but the truth, emotions are just responders. Emotions are responders to what happened, what's going on, but those don't necessarily indicate the truth. For example, to take it to kind of an extreme level, a victim who was raped can say, well, I feel broken and I feel unworthy, but that is not actually the truth. That's just an indicator. That's just a response to the trauma that happened. But the truth is you're still whole. You're still a beautiful, lovely, worthwhile person. And so it's really good to hold to the truth when you have trauma-induced anxiety, because you get that flare up, you get that nervous energy, and it's easy to think the feelings you're feeling are your guidance. That's just the truth of it. I don't know how else to say it, but it's not. And so making sure to hold on to find your 3 things. For me, it's I am okay, even when everything else doesn't feel okay. Another one is my decision was okay. If you don't know our story, I'm gonna try not to cry. We had to put our daughter on hospice, and a lot of people were like, she looked like she was doing fine when at home she wasn't, and I wrestle with that a lot. And so I have to remember the truth was the decision I made was okay. And so find those things that you hold on to that are the truth, so that when you start having those feelings, you start having those emotions, you can remember these are just indicators of what the circumstance has happened, and that's why it feels yucky, but the truth remains, whatever those 2 things are. So just wanted to throw that in there, and then, you can go ahead and wrap up with your list, but just wanted to share that.
No, I love it. I feel like I could do an entire call on trauma-induced anxiety, because been there, been there. I'm still there. Like you don't arrive with that. You just gain more tools to walk your journey. So yeah, and you guys, like with what's going on in the world, just to tie into what Brooke-Ann just said, I didn't want to harp on it too much and make the call too long, but over just the past couple of years, there's been a massive amount of trauma-induced anxiety that people aren't even recognizing as trauma or anxiety. And so we're functioning in this way that's like just barely, and everyone's in fight or flight. And so like different kinds of diseases and health issues are skyrocketing, and nobody is looking at, well, what is the root reason and why am I struggling to function, especially if you have a roof over your head and money in your bank and food on your table. It's like you're looking at what's going on in the world and thinking, why should I feel this way? I should, like I'm good. And you're almost beating yourself up. And it's that internal dialogue that I mentioned before that you've got to flip so that you can get to what is going on and how do I function through this and release it and move forward and change the soundtrack. So yeah, I mentioned in the comments that thoughts are liars too, and thoughts dictate your emotions and your emotions dictate your actions. And those actions cannot just be like what you're doing with others, but what you're doing daily with yourself. So you really have to like step back and realize the thought that you're worthless is it's the thought process itself that's lying to you, and you get to change that. It's a process though. So be kind to yourself. Oh, she called you Bam Bam. Brooke-Ann, Brianna called you Bam Bam. Okay, guys, let's run through my list really quick. the liquid chill roller. Okay, if you don't know what liquid chill is, that's okay. Jessica, are you on here? She's gonna throw it down for us. This is one of her favorites. Yep, Jess, I see you. She's gonna throw the recipe while in the chat while I keep talking, because if I stop to type, then you guys are just gonna watch me type, and that would be ridiculous. So the liquid chill roller is a combination of oils put into a roller that you can put on your body pretty much anywhere you want. These oils work together synergistically. The constituents in them work with your body to literally help calm the nervous system and the trauma response system. So that's like a whole bunch. There's not like an actual system called your trauma response system. It's like a whole bunch of things in your body working together. All right, so she's throwing that down, and Sarah Nicholson, if you're on here, I saw you earlier. I'm assuming you're still on. Sometimes life happens and you have to drop off calls, so I'm calling her out thinking she's still here. She's going to throw down the focus roller recipe, and the focus roller is phenomenal for ADHD. A lot of people have come back and just been blown away with this combination, helping with just, while you're getting the body balanced and giving it the nutrients that it needs, which we'll talk about in just a second. These oils are going to help work with the body to bring balance too, and just help through those hard times. Okay, yeah, she's here. I see her. Okay, Omega Gize is a supplement. It's a capsule. Your omegas are huge. Our omegas are so important. And with our standard American diet, even a good diet, your 6s way out ratio your 3s. And so those omegas have to be balanced. There's so much of that supports the gut and the brain, and the gut brain like connection. And with ADHD and anxiety, those things need to be communicating properly. So Omega Gize is phenomenal. MindWise is a supplement that's a liquid form that you can take. It's got CoQ10, it's got MCTs, which I'll talk about with diet too. Those medium chain triglycerides are super important, you guys. Your brain is made of lipids. It has to have fat to function. And so we did this horrible thing, like our, I don't know what generation. I get lost on like what they're called, but there was a generation. It was like my parents' generation that went through that super like low fat period, and we all starved out our brains. That was a bad deal. You've got to be eating fat. So MindWise is a combination of all things that is cognitive support. I have a friend, she's not on the call tonight, but her name's Rachel, and she sent me her story, and it was phenomenal. She had ADHD her entire life. She was able to get off medication. She said MindWise was a massive kicker for her, which was really interesting for me because a lot of people that I talk to have not really mentioned it. And I think it's probably an unspoken, unknown gem within Young Living that is supportive for this. So put that down on your list. You just put it like in a spoon or a glass. You can add it to your Ninja Red and you just drink it. It's kind of a thick pomegranate-ish tasting liquid. Ninja Red. Okay. If you're not new here, then we all love Ninja Red. Ninja Red is a liquid juice supplement made from the Ninja wolfberry. I'm not going to like break down every one of these. We can talk about them later, but super, super high antioxidants and tons of nutrients. So bottom line is when your brain is struggling, when your body is in a fight or flight, when your emotions are wrecked, you are not getting enough nutrients, because whatever nutrients you have, your body is using to try to stay alive, because you're in that survival mode, right? So you're blowing through nutrients and minerals. So that Ninja Red is going to be a really easy way to replenish the nutrients, especially if you're like me. When my anxiety kicks in, you can always know when I'm not doing well because I stop eating. So if you see me and I look really thin, people will be like, oh my gosh, you look so thin. You look so, and I'm like, yeah, I'm struggling. Like that's my sign that I'm struggling. I'm not getting nutrients. And I can do that for a little while because I'm running in fight or flight and I'm like high anxiety. My dopamine's kicking off. And then I crash. And so Ninja Red is the savior there to help me. I can drink Ninja Red when I'm struggling to eat and my gut doesn't want to work and I don't want food. I can at least drink Ninja Red and get the nutrients that I need. It's also got minerals in it as well. Enzymes, guys, enzymes are huge. I'm going to give you a little trick here and then we can talk about it in depth when we go underground. But Mighty Zymes is what the kids chew up. So if you're here for your child or someone who has a child, Mighty Zymes is very easy to chew. We have 5 different enzymes. I'm not going to break them all down because that'll take a while, but essential zyme is like a pill form. It's not a capsule. And here's the secret. If your child has ADHD, bedwetting, focus problems, then you can take that essential zyme, put it in a Vitamix or a Ninja Blend Tech, I don't know, some really nice blender, and blend up the whole bottle and make it powder. So if you're in my education group, you've heard me talk about this. This is a big deal. Blend it up and make it a powder, and then you're going to add the powder to the Ninja Red. There's another supplement we have called Sulfurzyme that is MSM that's very beneficial. You can add that to that Ninja Red, and you make a little drink and drink it, and that is the fastest way to deliver the enzymes, the nutrients, and the MSM to the body, and you will start to see changes. I have a lot of people whose children have made complete flips from we're struggling, we need medication, even medication isn't helping, and then they start to give the gut the enzymes and that MSM and the nutrients, and things start changing. So yes, Elise, if you can't blend it up, then yeah, however you can get the capsule. Essential Zyme, the pill itself is pretty big, so if you can't blend it up for kids that don't swallow big pills, then you would probably want to choose a different enzyme, which Allerzyme, Detoxyzyme, those come in tiny little capsules. And then for adults, if you don't want to blend up, if you're in the middle of I don't know, maybe I should save this for underground. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, Life 9 is a probiotic. You really need that one. Gut support, you guys. Gut support for all things. Disease starts in the gut of all kind. Mental, emotional, physical, all of it. The gut has to be supported. So take your Life 9. It's best taken at night on an empty stomach. But if you can only take it at lunch, then freaking take it at lunch. There's like billions of bacteria in our probiotics. So just take it when you can. It's going to work. Super B is a B vitamin, super supportive to cognitive function and the neuro system that we mentioned before. Unwind is a packet of powder. It is 5-HTP, L-theanine, and magnesium, a magnesium blend and a marine blend. Also, it is magical. Put it on your list. You just pour it in your mouth. Everyone in my house takes it every single night. Genius is an oil that is super beneficial. I think there's some on here that have stories to share with Genius. It's in the kids scent line, so it's already pre-diluted. So it's great for putting on babies, kids, adults, whatever. Just start slinging that oil around. It'll work. And then you want lemon oil in your water every day, and you've got to hydrate. I don't want to harp on that, but you have to hydrate for your body to function. So put lemon in your water every single morning. That's going to be very beneficial. I know it's not one that you would connect to anxiety and ADHD, but trust me, it will be very helpful. Really quick before we jump underground, I want to talk about nutrition, you guys. I already said you got to have fats for your brain and all that stuff, but you have to be eating food that feeds your body. I mean, it's huge. Let your food be your medicine be your food, right? Terry Walker, she's going to share, but she has a study that she read on cholesterol in correlation with this. So I'll be quiet, and Terry, you can jump in.
I took my earbuds out, so now I think you can hear me better than last time. All right, so the study came out last week, literally October 6th, and some meta-analysis, and the conclusion states this: meat abstention is clearly associated with poor mental health, specifically higher levels of both depression and anxiety. And one of the reasons for this is that every single hormone that we have starts with cholesterol. So when we go on these low-fat diets or vegetarian, it's the same thing. Our body does not have the cholesterol as its foundation to create healthy and sufficient hormones. We have to have that. So, I mean, it's good that we've got, a lot of these things, but what you eat, you've got to eat. We have to each eat our meats and the healthy animal fats. And history shows that from back in the 30s and studying people, groups of very healthy people. So that's it.
Okay, let's turn the recording off and jump underground and get dirty. All right, catching up on stuff over here.